Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. And I'm coming to you from down here at Campbell's Cove, and as you can see, we've got the magnificent tall ship, the Southern Swan, just tied up here, not doing very much at the moment on this Saturday morning. And as you can see, it's overcast. It's a little bit windy today, so I'll stick to this little cove area here so we can have a bit of a chit chat about things, and we'll just watch life go by. There's a few people about, but not all that much activity, not as much as activity as what there should be down here, given the beauty of this wonderful area and this beautiful part of Sydney. Anyway, what I want to do today, or over the next 10 or so days in the lead up to the 28th of October, is I want to have a few series that I want to talk about in terms of the Orchidae and Greece's contribution to the war, World War II, things that transpired, and just so that we Greek Australians, as well as other nations, can gain a bit of an understanding as to what happened, why it happened, and how it impacted Greece, our families, and the rest of the world. So let's just go back to the start there, or for as much as I know and understand. For those who are not aware, the 28th of October 1940 was a very, very significant milestone in modern Greece's history. And it's a day where the Greek character and the Greek tenacity and Greek ideals and honour were paraded and tested and put on show. So just to put things into perspective, Greece back then was a very, very small country with fairly insignificant manufacturing capacities. Population would have been back then, I don't know, less than 10 million. I don't know exactly what the population was in 1940, but I'd imagine that it was less than the 10 million. And the neighbours of Greece, which are Italy, Bulgaria, Albania, they're the countries that border Greece. But Italy has always been, especially in modern history, a great manufacturing power, very big into the automobiles, the industrial production, clothes, shoes, boots, aeroplanes, boats, you name it. The Italians were very, very good at it, and as they are still today, world leaders when it comes to engineering and setting the standard. But Italy had a much bigger population. It would have been at least 40 million, I'd imagine. So once again, I haven't done any fact checking or fact addressing, but it's important just to understand the perspective that Italy not only was a bigger country in terms of population, but it was also a mighty strong nation when it came to military might and training of its military and everything that goes with being a tier 1 nation. But back then they had a fascist leader, a dictator by name of Mussolini, and he had aligned his views and his forces with Hitler and Germany, and together they were one mighty power. And it's also fair to say that Italy, when it came to capacity in terms of air capacity and sea capacity and skilled military capacity, they were a force to be reckoned with. They were a huge power in relative terms. So where does this lead us? What had happened is in the lead up to World War II, Germany and Italy were making moves, and Italy had moved into Albania, which is on the border of Greece, and Hitler and his Nazi forces, the Axis forces, were basically going through and steamrolling country after country, and everybody was terrified. Everybody was absolutely terrified at the might and strength of these armies, and there was great concern in terms of where it was all going to end and how it was going to transpire. On the 28th of October 1940, Mussolini sent an envoy to the Greek Prime Minister, Metaxas, with a letter, with an ultimatum that Greece had just 3 hours to allow Italy to pass through Greece on its way to Russia. But of course we understand that once you submit to an ultimatum to allow an army to pass through your country, you're basically surrendering. So let's not be fooled by the wording of these things. So as we're saying, basically Mussolini was asking Greece to surrender, and of course Metaxas, for whatever reason it was, said the powerful words "ohi," which means a resounding no. Mussolini expected Greece to just roll over like all the other countries that Hitler and Mussolini had engaged. He expected Greece just to roll over and allow the free traffic of Italian forces to pass through Greece and to basically and to occupy Greece. But to his dismay and to everybody's dismay, Greece said no. So on that day, Italy declared war with Greece, and Greece was at war, and the bells, the church bells throughout Greece, tolled incessantly. They just continued to toll to bring to attention to all the people that Greece was now at war, and that all the able men were to assemble and get transported as quickly as possible to the borders in order to defend to the death the liberty and freedom of Greece. So what had happened was that all of these things happened, but they were all planned. They were all very, very cleverly planned, because when I go back and look at the moon records for late October 1940, you notice that there is absolutely no moon on the 28th and 29th of October, which meant that Mussolini would have had a plan B just in case the Greeks did not immediately surrender. Then he would declare war, and they cleverly declared war on a night that was dark and no moon, to allow their troops to stream through the mountains, through the borders, and into Greece. So where does this lead us? It's important to note where it leads us, that Greece, once again, it wasn't the first time, Greece once again came to the rescue of democracy. In ancient times, Greece defended democracy through the many battles that they had with Persia, with the Ottoman Empire in more modern times. But Greece is, in terms of its position, it's the stepping stone. It has always been the stepping stone from the east to the west, and Greece has always provided a buffer to the west, and through warring and holding the Ottomans at bay for as long as they could in the early 1100s, 1200s, to the pre-BC wars with Persia, with Darius, the Battle of Salamina, the Battle of Plataea, the battles of Marathon. All of these battles were very, very important milestones in the protection of global democracy, because had the Persians defeated the Greeks, had Mussolini and Hitler have travelled through Greece early in 1940, the world today may have been a different place. I'm not going out there and saying it would have been a worse place or a better place. You can make your own judgment on that. But in terms of upholding and keeping the flame of democracy alive and well, then the Greeks can hold their heads up high as being the purveyors of freedom and the defenders of democracy. So what happened back in 1940 on October 28th? The Greeks went to war with Italy, but not only did they defend their borders, not only did they defend Greece, but they also engaged, forced back and chased back through Albania the crack Italian forces, and for the first time in these unsettling times, Hitler and his Axis forces tasted their first defeat, and which annoyed Hitler to no extent, because he had to then divert his armies. His armies were going through Northern Europe on their way to Russia. He had to divert had to divert his armies to come through Greece to defeat Greece, to ensure that Greece surrendered. And he was absolutely pissed off with Mussolini and the Italian forces, who weren't able or weren't capable to deliver the important breakthrough that the pincer movement required in order to create an early victory for Hitler, an early world victory. So the Greeks dug in their heels and provided a resistance for 219 days, to their credit, which was long enough to distract and to hold back the momentum, the huge momentum that Hitler and his Axis forces had gained. And we all know that once you lose your momentum, once you lose that head of steam, then it's very, very hard to keep soldiers motivated, to keep rations and things transported, and to keep things happening. So once the Italians, the Germans had passed through Greece, mind you, Greece was fighting the Germans, the Italians, the Albanians and the Bulgarians all at once, and holding them back and resisting for long enough to cause a distraction. It was like a mouse fighting a lion, but they did it. And many people acknowledge that magnificent effort that the Greeks were able to do, and it made world headlines back in the 40s, and it gave the world an opportunity to breathe again and to think of what is possible. How beautiful is this tall ship that's just come in? It's called the Soren Larsen. Soren Larsen. Geez, I'm just so happy that I picked this little place here. I hope you can hear me with all the wind breeze. But that's the first or the second episode in this little series on Greece at war in World War II. In the previous one, I gave you an account of how my grandfather, Petros Dimitrios Kalpaxis, was one of the many who answered the call and was one of those soldiers who were involved and that we can celebrate as part of that first defeat of Hitler and his Axis forces. Anyway, let's finish up with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, and I feel absolutely great. Look at this young lady here doing this beautiful job. A little tugboat, or the little, what do you call it, blow-up boat, is there just pushing, helping push and helping set up those little cushions on the boat. Just absolutely amazing how there's one person on that big boat and one just sitting on that little boat outside and one on the jetty there, and they're doing a magnificent job. It just goes to show you don't need a lot of people. You just need good people, committed people, to be able to do magnificent things. So let's finish up with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay well, and stay relevant. And most importantly, let's never forget the effort of the Greeks during World War II in helping defend democracy and becoming an annoyance to Hitler and the Axis forces, and digging their heels in. And it cost them a lot. It cost Greece an absolute a lot in terms of deaths, in terms of destruction to the economy, and many other things, atrocities. And you often wonder whether or not it was worth their while. But of course you know that because we're free today, because we're free and free to speak, free to live, free to travel, of course not free with COVID, but all of these freedoms were the gift of democracy, and something that needs to be at least acknowledged and talked about. So I encourage you to speak to your grandparents, your parents, and ask them to tell you stories about Greece, about the war, about the occupation, and even about the ugly civil war, because all of those things are part of our history, and all of those things are part of everybody's history, because Greece's contribution during World War II helped the world defeat the ugly Nazi Axis forces and give us at least an opportunity to celebrate some freedoms and be who we are today in this civilized world. Take care, and until we chat again, it's Jim from Jim's 5am Club, wishing you all the very best.